Welcome to Massive Passive Cash Flow, the podcast that guides professionals to financial prosperity. Join our community and let's start building your wealth. Here's your host, Gary Wilson.
Hello and welcome to the Massive Passive Cash Flow podcast. This is Gary Wilson, your host. Welcome back, folks. It's good to see you. We got a special guest today, Lou Brown, whom I've had the pleasure of meeting in person and also had the distinct pleasure to have him show up as a surprise guest on one of my classes I taught several months ago. And the old saying, brothers from another mother. So we've been able to meet and talk and converse. And I can tell you guys with full 100% Gary Wilson support that we come from the same cloth, and Lou's a good guy, and you're going to learn a lot today. So definitely, I know you might be driving or sitting there in your office waiting for the next appointment, but boy, if you can take some notes, I suggest you this is one you're going to want to take notes on. So now, if you haven't already done so, go ahead and subscribe to the podcast. It's on Stitcher, iTunes, iHeartRadio. Always, of course, leave a review if you don't mind. And by the way, something new in the last several months is, if you haven't been to the website lately, please go there, realestatewithgarywilson.com. Click on the members area. If you're already a member, you know exactly what to do. Go to the left, log in, and get all the good stuff. If you're not, go to the right and get in for free for 30 days. And no kidding, you get to get access to all those 300 and some odd recordings on 1031 exchange and self-directed IRAs and everything you want to know about investing, but also the material. I mean, calculators, spreadsheets, free books. I mean, it's Christmas, so go get yourself some Christmas gifts for free on me. Okay. The last thing I want to mention is we're attracting a lot of agents around US and Canada. Now, the podcast is in 50 different countries now, but we have a lot of what we call investor agents logging in. Most of them I know because I've trained them personally, and some of them are actually on a personal team I run, and they're certified to work with you and me, the investors. They're not your average everyday agent. They understand how to identify, analyze, and help you negotiate good deals that are not always on the MLS. In fact, we have access to every property in every county in the United States. We can tell everything about the property and the owner, and these agents all have that access to help you get good off-market deals. So do yourself a favor. It doesn't cost you a dime. Get yourself one of those certified investor agents and have a good investment year. So anyways, so back to Lou. First off, Lou, man, thank you very much for taking your time to this. I really appreciate it,
Well, Gary, thank you. This is very fun to me because, number one, they call me the king of cash flow, and I've got a class called Massive Passive Income. So Massive Passive Cash Flow, I'm loving being on your podcast. When you said we're kindred spirits, there's no doubt about it.
Yeah. Well, I tell you what, this is it is a special treat for me because I know how successful you are, and everybody listening, I'm going to emphasize it again. This is my 100% full endorsement. I don't think I've ever said that before, but I've been able to meet and get to know Lou personally. So I tell you what, get ready to take notes. And Lou, if you wouldn't mind, for those who aren't familiar with you, would you mind just painting us a picture of Lou Brown and maybe one of your humble beginnings and give us the good juicy stuff. People want details. They want to know all the juicy stuff, and then we can get into some meat and potatoes,
Absolutely, Gary. Well, I'm very blessed that I discovered real estate at a very young age. I was actually raised by my mom. She was an immigrant to this country. She came over as a war bride. She had met her American trooper husband. Everything was going to be fantastic. She got here and discovered he was an alcoholic and an abuser. So she was strong enough to get away from that situation, but she was here in this country all by herself. Her parents, nobody was here. And she made friends with various people. And I'm happy to say that she made friends with lots of different people. And then she met my father. I jokingly say her second mistake. Oh. So it ended up just being the two of us. And from 2 years old on, it was just the two of us. And we kind of raised each other. We learned a lot of things about life and a lot of things about setbacks and a lot of things about not having money. And really furnished our apartment using S&H green stamps to buy the furniture that was in the apartment. We went to the redemption store with the books. It was my job to lick and stick the stamps into the books and use those as currency at the redemption store and be able to buy those things. But, so I know what it's like to be on the other side of the door when the rent man comes, hey, where's the rent? And my mother hiding behind the door and saying, don't answer the door. I'm going to have the money on Friday. I'd rather just wait until Friday and just give them the money then. And it's been a struggle. And when I was 12 years old, she tried to buy a house. There was a program going at the time. And unfortunately, she was turned down for that program. So as a result, I was not raised in a house. I was raised in apartments until I bought my first house when I was 18 years old. And it was all because of a friend of hers, Aunt Mabel, who had bought it when I was 8 years old. She bought the duplex that they lived in. And she told me the people on one side were paying enough money to cover the mortgage. And that meant that she was living for free. So the contrast in my mind was, hey, we're hiding out from the rent man and Aunt Mabel is living for free. And that was a pretty remarkable thing. So as that incubated in my mind, and then she bought the duplex next door. The people on one side paid enough to cover the mortgage and the other money was theirs. And then they bought another one and another one and another one, all on the same street. Talk about target marketing, right? They grew their wealth on one single street. And then she called me at 16 years old. She says, come over and help me move. I said, move where? She said, a brand new house in a brand new subdivision, all brick home on a corner lot. And it was like a dream come true. And I had watched her accumulate wealth. And I said, Aunt Mabel, how did you do this? And she said 2 words that changed my life. She said, accumulate property. So sure enough, at 18, I bought my first house, and then I was transferred from Charlotte, North Carolina to Atlanta, and where I live today. And we've just continued to do that concept of buy, hold, sell. I've evolved it into selling properties, not just holding properties, because landlording sucks, in my opinion. So what happened in my evolution was thinking back to that 12-year-old kid that got turned down for the loan. My mom got turned down for the loan to buy that house, and my mom never wanting to talk about it again, saying, hey, let's not, that's not us. That's other people. We're not going to be able to own a home. And so looking back to those days, I, over time, developed a program to help people end up with home ownership. And to this day, that's what we really use as our mission, to transform lives through affordable housing, to empower families and individuals to enjoy the American dream of home ownership. So that's our mantra that we give to our clients that join our membership. And our job is to help them find a home in their local community where they can raise their kids, enjoy life, and have a future. And now I have licensees all over the country, in fact, all over the world, that are using that same platform to be able to help people to achieve home ownership.
Yeah, I love the cause and the purpose, and I feel the same way. When we were little, we rented, and then when my mom and dad, my dad was in Korea and then Vietnam for a year each, and of course that's pretty hard on a marriage, so the marriage didn't make it. And my mom tried to raise us on a bank teller's salary. If you know anything about bank tellers, they don't make a lot of money. And, she ended up messing her back up pretty bad. This was back in the early 70s. And back then she was out of work for a long time. So it was rough, But I tell you what, I had friends that had houses. And I thought, you know what, this looks like a lot better way to go and, have a yard you can play in. And when I was in college, I was lucky. I had a college roommate named Socrates, and his dad was one who showed me how to buy their first house. He didn't give us the fish, taught us how to fish. And the rest, they say, is history. And I tell you what, the American dream was alive and well, and I'm living proof of it. And for everybody listening, all what I suggested, that's it, is, think full circle. Nothing wrong with becoming affluent and building a lot of wealth and income. But make sure your heart's in the right place, because there's a lot of people out there that don't have the same opportunities that you have, and the same network of friends that I had. I was, poor kid, but I had some friends from some better neighborhoods, right? And that's what did the trick for me. I mean, Socrates being my roommate, that was pure blessing, 100%. Wasn't for that, who knows where I'd be today. That was the turning point for me. But I remember his dad was a Greek immigrant, and he was real big on helping people get into his apartments and helping them move on in life. That was his mantra. That was his thing, helping immigrants move on into the American dream. So I'm not saying everybody's got to give away houses. That's not what I'm saying. But listen to what Lou has to say, because they figured out a way to do this. And I call it prosperity through service. Serve others first, and you shall prosper as a result. So keep on listening, folks, and take notes. Yeah.
Well, Gary, the evolution for me, and I appreciate your sharing that, because we really are kindred spirits there. Mm-hmm. I realized over time, making money was kind of personal. And it was like all about you in the making money world. And there was just something that didn't sit right with me. We were doing well. And I said, what is it that I can do to get on the other side of the table? So in landlording, you're really on opposite sides of the table. You've got the tenant on one side and the landlord's on the other side. And the landlord only makes the difference between what their mortgage payment is and what the amount of rent that they're receiving. And that little spread there sometimes is a little spread. And if you have vacancy, if you have expenses, if a roof goes, oh my gosh, it's a huge expense and can take away your profitability for a couple of years. And so I said, there's something better here. And I said, what if we start offering the residents that are joining us the opportunity to someday end up with home ownership? So sure enough, we started a program called the Path to Home Ownership, where we help deserving families, regardless of credit or financial background, to end up with home ownership. Well, the money side of that is quite remarkable, because a landlord only makes that little spread between what they pay in their cost of funds and what they rent the property for. Well, we start there, and we've got 25 profit centers above that because of what we do in helping people to obtain home ownership. So all of a sudden, one thing, the way typical landlords operate versus a whole other way of being that really helps people. So we become mentors of sorts for our clients, and we don't call them tenants. We call them clients that move into the homes, and we support them in their process. And along the way, we're getting bits and pieces and hunks and chunks of money. And the way the whole system is designed is to create that process, to create that flow where they're receiving that income, meaning my clients that are learning how to do exactly what I'm describing, they're making that income. And some of them are building that within 5 miles of where they live. So literally they're building a truly home-based business and really being able to structure things in a way that they've got an exit strategy as well. So one thing that landlords fail to realize is someday they may wake up and not want to do that anymore. They may wake up. I just bought a property, Gary, this is a great story. I just bought a property that had sat vacant for 5 years. Now, the utilities were on, the yard was mowed, they did everything except they did not want to be landlords again. So they just let the property sit there and sit there and sit there. I finally bought it through a real estate agent. He brought it to me. He knew I was in the business. He was local based. And he says, Lou, I'm about to list this on the MLS. Would you like to take a look at it? I said, I sure would. Well, Bob is his name. I said, Bob, this will work for us. I said, it needs to be updated. It hasn't been touched in years. It's a 1960s home. I said, what can we do? We worked out a deal. It's an all brick home. It's got a fenced yard. It was perfect for my program. And sure enough, we worked that out. And the agent made both sides of the commission because it never made it to the MLS. So he made the listing side and the selling side of the commission and made the full commission paid for by the seller, and sure enough, it worked for me as well. So I put one of my clients into that home, and in fact, that client gave us $7,000 to move into that home and took it as is, and is doing all the repairs to the home, and we're giving a credit towards their down payment for them agreeing to do some or all of the repairs to the home. So that's part of our program as well, to give our clients moving into the home the opportunity to do the fix up. So as a result of that, we win because we don't have to go through the pain and suffering of fixing it up. And they win because they get to choose their own flooring and their own colors and their own faucets and everything else that homeowners love to do, right? So as a result of our program, they are on the path to home ownership. And in that process, then we're going to move them up until they get good enough credit and good enough down payment to be able to get a new loan from the bank. In the meantime, we're getting that initial bits and pieces and hunks and chunks. The chunks come from when they ultimately purchase the home. But in the meantime, we're getting that income off the property as well.
Yeah. So it sounds like a pretty awesome program. So they can really, from where they currently are, they might not be able to do the traditional route of putting down 5 or 10 or 20% and get a bank note for the rest and moving right in. But yet they can move in. They can move into the home they want, be part of the improvement of the process, which is ingenious. Because if they're linking it, they're thinking of it and treating it like it's their home, right? So they have that home ownership pride. And all the while they're building up their credit source. So fill in some gas here. So every month they make a rental payment. That's a form of credit. Like you're extending credit to them. You give them access to the property possession in exchange for a monthly payment. It's a form of credit. So how long does it take for them? Would you say on average? I know everybody's different. Some people might be a 1 year, they're golden. Some people might 3 years. But what are you seeing as far as how long does it take for that to build up on their credit reporting so they can then get a eventual mortgage,
Well, Gary, that's a great question. And in our process, one of the things we do is they pay their rent through a portal that reports to the credit bureau. So what happens is they're actually establishing a new trade line of credit. And they are definitely, and we encourage them and train them and educate them that they absolutely need to make sure that payment is made on time. So it's reporting to the credit bureau as such. Now, as a result, now that's building their credit, that's building their score, which is a goal that we have. And at some point, either they can go on to the bank and get a loan, or we can be their bank and we actually provide financing for them. And really what we're doing is financing our equity in the property, which is fine. I love being a banker because I can tell you the bankers, there's a reason there's 40-story buildings. There's a reason there's drive-through windows. There's a reason they have all those employees. There's a reason they have those marble floors, right? They are making a fortune in financing. And so I love using the commodity of real estate to really get to the end game of financing. And so by providing that financing for our clients, we have done exactly what the mortgage company does. The mortgage company does not have to deal with any maintenance or management headaches. It's just send check, don't call, send check, don't call. And to me, the ultimate, let's say, exit strategy for a landlord is to sell their properties, but not only sell their properties, sell them to the residents that live in the properties, and all the typical costs to sell, real estate commissions, closing costs, and all the other fix-up costs and everything we typically do to sell a property, that disappears. Actually, that becomes profit. So you actually make a lot more profit with this exit strategy than you would to simply be a landlord.
Yeah.
Oh, and to answer the question, you asked me, how long does it take? And the answer is, it really is dependent on the client's score. So, and their management of that score. That's another part of the education process too, to not let them fall backwards, but to fall forward, right? And to make sure that they do the right thing in terms of being able to earn that income and earn that credit score. So over time, when they move up to our rent to own level, then what happens is they've paid us at least 3.7% of the value of the property. Now that's another cha-ching, that's another income. And what's great about that is now that becomes a credit towards their down payment when they purchase the home.
Yeah.
Now, during that phase, again, we're reporting to the credit bureau, but we're also giving them an incentive. So every month that they pay on time, they're earning a $100 credit towards their down payment. So we help them build up that down payment as well. So it's not just receiving the income, it's also helping them to establish themselves to move up to the next level. So we do have multiple levels in the program to move them up depending upon where they join with us, the amount of down that they have and the amount of income that they have.
Yeah, that's equally as ingenious as the first part, because think about it. So a couple of points is at the end of the day, in terms of business, the banks are the top of the food chain. I mean, think about it. You got the Rothschilds at the very top. You got the Federal Reserve technically is a bank. For in the U.S. for all the U.S. banks, and then there's a pecking order there. But you think about it, when you're lending money, just like the big banks run a credit report and they do due diligence on you, they want to make sure that you're a good credit risk. You're actually establishing that credit worthiness, so you actually know these people more than even the bankers do. So why wouldn't you want to lend money to a person? You've helped them improve their credit score through being diligent on the rental payments. So you've conditioned them and helped them get used to paying their payment on time. And then you not just sell it and get a one-time payment. Now you get payments like an annuity for a long period of time. And it's interesting you brought that up, because one of I call him a country uncle. He's not really a blood uncle, but he's my mom's best friend's husband down in Texas and near Magnolia, Texas, north of Houston. And his whole life he's been an investor. And he said, what, Gary, I just decided 80 years old, instead of me just selling these things outright, I'm going to look for people in need. And a lot of times in Texas, it's immigrants. And he would extend them enough credit to get into the house. They'd have to put some kind of money down, pay rent, and usually somewhere around a 3-year mark, they're able to pay it off, or he can just finance them. And as he says, I got built-in retirement. And he said, I don't ever get a phone call. I don't fix a toilet. I don't change a light bulb. I don't cut the grass. I don't do anything. It's basically mailbox money. And he's at the top of the food chain, doing similar to what you're doing. So I love the whole idea. And if you think about it, again, I'm going to emphasize this, people listening, is if you really want to be at the top of the food chain, be the banker. And if you're going to be a banker, why not lend to people you already know and help establish your credit worthiness over a period of time? I couldn't think of a better low-risk money-making adventure, and you're doing a good thing for somebody.
Well, you're 100% right. And, the thing is, the asset, the people, their payment history. Why in the world would you let them go on to the bank, right? It's like, oh, no, please don't go to the bank. Please And that's the other good thing is once they have established that history, well, we can lower our interest rate as well, because we're not taking the risk that we're taking otherwise. With someone with bad credit and a bad history in the past, well, there's a higher risk. So, of course, there's a higher reward, but there's also a higher interest rate because of that. And so as a result, when they've established themselves that they could qualify for a lower interest rate, well, we can lower our interest rate as well and keep that client as opposed to letting them go on to the bank. But it's completely up to the client to make that decision. They don't have to go with us. They can go on to the bank. We give them the open door to be able to take advantage of that. And that's exactly why they joined our program, is so that they could have that path and that some of their rent money every month would be going towards eventually purchasing that property. And so when they get to our what we call our gold membership, now we have a bronze, silver, gold, and platinum level. So at the gold, that is our in-house financing level. And that's where we step in and provide the financing. And if that works for them, that works for them. And they just stay with us. If they want to go on to the bank, they can do that. And there's no restrictions to stop them from doing that. And then, and then they could just pay us off. And that does happen. We've got one this month that's paying us off, getting a new loan from the bank. So that's another opportunity and option that's available. And it's just a really great process. People love you for it. They send you Christmas cards. They send you gifts. They appreciate what you're doing to cause their life to be better than it was before they met you.
Yeah. And it's interesting. Life is, there's a school you can pay to go to, high school and college and university, go to campuses, and there's a school of life. And what you're doing is you're offering the school of life to these folks, which is the most important school. That's where you really learn these lessons. But so Lou, if we could, I know, and I wanted to talk about some other subjects, and I know we're going to be getting short on time here, but if you could, at the very beginning, you mentioned the fact that you have a lot of folks around the country who are certified affordable housing providers. So whether it's investors or agents, I'm assuming can both participate in that and get that certification, or what's fill us in on that part of things,
Gary, that's a great question. We have not only real estate agents and individual entrepreneurs, we also have nonprofit organizations that join us and use this as their mission for their nonprofit as well. But definitely agents have the best of both worlds. And I love to tell agents, look, wouldn't it be great if you could walk into a listing call, sit down with the seller and say, well, congratulations, Mr. and Mrs. Jones, your house is sold today. And they look at them, they go, what are you talking about? Well, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to make a presentation to you. If you like it, then our company is actually going to purchase your home. And if that doesn't work for you, not a problem. We'll list it and see what the market says. How does that sound? Well, they love it. And then, of course, being able to have that direct connection with that seller. It's not on the market yet. You're not in competition with everybody else. You've got that direct connection. And when you go through the process, and we have a thing called a cost to sell worksheet, and literally we work that. In fact, the seller actually helps us fill out the sheet so they can see how we arrive at the numbers. So once the seller's involved in the process of arriving at the numbers, they can see how much sense it makes just to go ahead and accept that number, as opposed to going to the market and seeing what might happen, which we know that they can turn off the switch. Gary, you've been around long enough to know that they turn that switch on and they turn that switch off. And they don't tell you exactly what day and what time they're going to turn that switch off. But when they turn that switch off, man, you know what just happened. This is my 5th real estate cycle. So I've definitely seen this happen over and over and over and over again. And so when they do that, just know that everything that we know to be true today suddenly changes. And when it changes, hey, it's another opportunity.
Yeah. It's funny. This is my 5th cycle too. I got my first house in January 1986. And I'm sure you remember the Tax Reform Act of 1986 came out. And then later on in October 87 was they called it Black Monday. It was a stock market crash. But in any case, I was a young kid and bought my first house right out of school and learned some valuable lessons. And I tell you what, guys, when the last one hit in the second half of 2007, it was not only turning on the light switch, it was like lightning quick fast. I mean, it just dropped like a ton of bricks. And the thing is I actually made money in that recession. I did quite well because the prior 3 just what gave me the life lessons, right? And the last one, I knew what to do, and I was well positioned, and just basically executed a system. And now the 5th one, I'm not, don't want to sound glib about it, but I'm not really worried. I'm worried for other people, but I know what to do, and I'm in a position. I'll just tell everybody I have no debt right now. I know it sounds crazy because I'm an investor, but I'm not opposed to debt. It's just I'm now in more control, and I can determine when I take on debt and what I take on and how much and all that kind of stuff. And it's a lot more fun when the bankers call you instead of you calling the bankers.
Amen. And that's exactly why I developed this program. And the reason was that we are going to have these cycles. So how do you flatten the curve? You and I have watched so many people lose everything when these crashes hit. And you and I have survived through it. And that's the beautiful thing, because we were doing things differently than everybody else was doing. So by offering your clients the opportunity to someday own the home and getting that income from them at the upfront level and not spending a fortune on fixing up the properties because the client's going to do the fix up and all kinds of other things that we've dialed into the system so that you don't have the risks that are inherent in real estate. So the flipping model, that's not only changed, that's going to change dramatically. And we know that they monkey with the taxes all the time. And when they do that, well, it impacts real estate. Exactly what you said about the 1986 Act. I remember that well. Dan Rostenkowski, congressman, stayed in the August recess and rewrote the new code because they knew that they could get it through in the last phase of Ronald Reagan's presidency. But at the beginning of Reagan's presidency, which I'm happy to say I was in real estate at that time because I bought my first one in 1976, that what happened, and interest rates were 21% when Reagan came into office, and he was able, through tax manipulation, to completely alter the economy in a very positive way, force interest rates down, force the economy up, and get a whole lot of investors involved in the economy. It was a brilliant move. And to this day, we just know that completely upended a really devastating market that we were in with 21% interest, if you can just imagine. That things changed dramatically. So the same is true today, that we have the ability to capture through setting up your business model a certain way, capture all the tax advantages in the entire spectrum so that you literally can put yourself in a zero tax bracket. Why? Because of all the spectrum of income that you've got on the path to home ownership plan.
Yeah, I love it. Hey, Lou, a couple things. I know we're getting short on time, but number one is I definitely want to have you back to talk about trust, because we're gonna, if we try to do it now, we won't do a good service to it. But if we could do that, and also I'm pretty sure a lot of folks listening are going to want to learn more and get a hold of you. So what's the top one or two or three ways for people to connect with you or get some information, website?
I would love to give people my book. I've got a book called Doing Good While Doing Well: How Real Estate Investors Provide a Service and Do Good for the Community. And I just would love for all of you to have a copy of my book. You can download it free of charge, and it's because of Gary, right? So doinggoodbook.com/Gary, doinggoodbook.com/Gary. You guys can qualify and get it for free, or you can get an actual live copy of it just by paying shipping and handling. And that will definitely tell you something that's kind of amazing, because you'll see people all over the country that are doing exactly what I'm doing. We've got mothers of five, we've got foster mothers, we've got nonprofit organizations, we've got people all over the country that are doing what I've been sharing with you today. So absolutely get yourself a free copy of that. You can also check out our website, streetsmartinvestor.com. streetsmartinvestor.com. And of course, I've got lots of goodies and downloads and free stuff there. So absolutely check us out. And I would just love to be of service to you. I know that whether you're a real estate agent, whether you're an investor, or whether you're a combination of the two, we've got lots of folks that are already doing those things, and they've been able to enhance their businesses dramatically.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that. I think I speak for a lot of people when I say thank you again for sharing all this and being so generous. Some people please, it'll be in the show notes, but please write this down. Doinggoodbook.com/Gary. Okay. And you get the book for free. All right. And there's, you write from the man who wrote the book. Okay. So, and then also go to streetsmartinvestor.com and just grab all you can get. I'm a big proponent of learning and educating and basically just being smarter. And so you're going to hear it right from one of the top people in the country that know what they're doing, Lou Brown. So if you haven't already, by the way, subscribe to the podcast, Massive Passive Cash Flow Podcast. Go ahead and do that on any of the 30 channels. And again, go grab yourself one of these certified investor agents. We know who they are because we've trained them. and they're the only place they can get that done. And they're not regular agents, guys. They have access to every property before it goes onto the listing services. This is a critical advantage. And they know how to identify them, of course, analyze them, and help you negotiate them. That's what they're trained to do. Most of them are investors themselves. So why not trust your investing activities with somebody that actually knows what they're doing, okay? But again, let's go back to Lou. I want you guys to take advantage of this. I think it's the first time I've ever said this, but you got my 100% full endorsement. I've got Lou's book myself, okay? When I was got that nice surprise back in January to have him come on board to a interview I was doing for someone else, I went ahead and took advantage of it then. So I suggest you do the same thing. And Lou, if we could, let's schedule another one. I wanted to have everybody who's listening here, there is a part B. Part A is how do you make it? Part B is how do you keep it? We're going to talk about part B. We're going to use trust and teach you a little bit, some things you probably hadn't known before. Okay, so we'll keep you posted on that one. But Lou, thanks again, man. I really appreciate it. I look forward to seeing you again. And any final parting words of wisdom or?
Well, Gary, it's been a real pleasure to be on here. Thank you for inviting me. Thank you for the opportunity to connect with your amazing network of folks. And I just really appreciate that. My goal in life is to make a difference for the better in the lives of others. And that's my intention here. And one of the things that we love, real estate is absolutely resilient. It provides so much future. And just like you, we have an amazing life as a result of it. We have an amazing monthly income because of it. And so definitely it's available for all of us. Because remember where I got started. I got started when interest rates were 21%. So guys, know that now is the right time to do this. Know that everything is an opportunity. And there are certain stealth ways that we find deals that nobody else knows about. So definitely we can help you with that.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay. Well, listen, you guys, everybody, all the listeners, Lou, God bless you and your families. Hope you have an awesome rest of the week. And we will see you on the next podcast next week.
Take care, baby.
Okay. All right. Bye-bye, everybody.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Massive Passive Cash Flow. Be sure to go to realestatewithgarywilson.com to join our community and start building wealth today.